So let's start with the second half of day 9. Okay, that is lab 19. So in lab 19, we will see that how we can increase reusability by creating a two-tier architecture. Now, if you watch the current state of the application, it is pretty nice, but look at the duplicate code, when we connect to the database. Wherever we are connecting to the database, right, that code is repeated again and again and again. I mean to say, we always go and, initialize the connection string. We go and then open the connection object. We fire the command object. We fill our data set, or must be execute the command object, and then we close the connection. So this, this code, right, is repeated again and again across project. In other words, if you want to just see that where this code is repeated again and again, for example, if you just go and search for this SQL connection word in your project, you can find that in so many places, this code is duplicated. So you can see like it's duplicated here in the load customer function. It's duplicated here in the BTN preview click. It's duplicated here again in the load customer. Again, if I click here, again in the display customer, it is duplicated. In the BTN delete, it is duplicated. So you can see this code is scattered across the project and creating lots of redundant code. So it would be great, if we can, move this data connection code into a separate library altogether and reuse it again and again. So in other words, rather than going and pasting this thing in multiple places, how about taking this code and moving it to a different library altogether and then referencing that library, rather than copy pasting this code again and again. So what it means is that, we have to take this code out and move it to a different layer altogether, or to a different tier altogether. That means we have to now break our project into two logical pieces. One, which has the user interface, and the other one, which has the data connection code, right? So how do we do that? So in order to increase reusability, what we will do is, let's go ahead and add a simple class library project. So you can see that I'm adding a new project here, and this project I'm going to go and add a class library project. So you can see that I have selected the type as class library, and I'm going to give a nice name here. So let's give a name as data access, right? And let's go ahead and create this project. So you can see that I have created a very simple class here called a CLS SQL server, and you can see that I am referencing the system.data.sql client namespace here. Great. Now let's go to the customer data entry screen, and let's start moving the data access code one by one to this central class library over here. Now if you watch the code very closely, right, if you watch the data access code in our project very closely, there are two kinds of code we have. One code which actually loads the data set, and this data set is then bound to a data grid or read somewhere. Okay. And the other kind of code actually does DML operations, that is insert, updates, and delete. That means wherever we are firing the execute non-query, it's nothing but it's doing a DML operation, right? Now what we'll do is, let's start one by one. Let's first move the dataset kind of code into this CLS SQL Server class here. So what I'll do is, I'm going to go and return a data set, from this class here. So for that, the first thing, if you want the data set in your project, you have to import system.data namespace. So I'll say, okay, this function, that is get customers, will actually go and return you what you call a data set object, which will actually have all the customer records. So what I'll do is, I'll take this search customer code from here, and right from here, from the opening of the connection, and I will control X this, and I will move it here, right, to this get customers function. Great. And definitely I don't want the grid view code over here. So this grid view code can go back again to the behind code of the UI. So I'm going to go and paste this code over here. Great. And from the class library, what I will do is, I will go back and return a data set from here. So in other words, this get customers function, right, I'm going to go and return a data set object from here. So you can see that the obj data set object which has been filled, I'm going to go and return that object. Great. Also, I can see that there is some error here regarding the configuration manager. Let me just go and import the system.configuration namespace. The error has not gone off from here. I can't see the configuration manager. Okay. Must be I need to go and add a reference to the system.configuration namespace. Okay. So let me just go to the solution explorer here, and let me just add a reference in the data access library. So I'm going to go and add a reference to the system.configuration namespace. Right, now I think the error should go off. So yeah, so you can see now the error has gone off. That's good. So in other words, we were getting some errors because the system.configuration namespace also has to be added to the class library. Okay, remember that. If you remember, right, the system.configuration namespace is necessary because we are going to read the connection string from the app config file, right, from a centralized location. Great. So now it is time to go and use this library inside our user interface here. So the first thing what you have to do is we have to go and add the what you call the reference to the data access library, and you can see that I have added the reference, and we have to go and import the namespace. So you can see that I have imported the namespace saying using data access. Now the next thing is in the btn search customer click, from where we have deleted the data access code, we need to go and invoke from here the code which is there in our library currently, right? So if you remember, right, our class library name was CLS SQL Server. So let's go ahead and create an object of CLS SQL Server class. So I'm going to say here CLS SQL Server obj SQL is equal to new CLS SQL Server. And if you remember, right, we created a very simple function here called as get customer. So we're going to go and invoke that function. So this function actually returns a data set, and the data set is now bound with the data grid view. Nice. So let's go ahead and execute this application to just see that if things are proper and if things are nice and we don't have any issues. So let me do a control F5 here, and let me go and test my search customer screen. So there it is. So you can see that now it is working perfectly well and it is nice. So that is good. So we were able to move the code to a centralized location. Also, what I've done is I'm just showing you in a debug mode how the code is getting invoked from the from the class library. So you can see that I put a debug point there, and you can see that currently the debug point is on the btn search customer. So it goes to the btn search customer, click. After that it goes and creates the object of CLS SQL Server. From there it goes to the get customers function. The get customer function actually opens the connection, it fills the data set. So in other words, now the complete code is now centralized into that CLS SQL Server class, and we don't have to go and write code across the places of data connection. So that's nice, that's good. So in the same way, let's try to figure out what other source code are there which are duplicates. So if you see here, one was this btn search customer click, that's already centralized. Now I've done a very simple find here, so I can see that there are a couple of duplicate code here. At least let's try to use that search customer function which we have created wherever possible. So if I remember, it's very difficult to guess from here. Let's go and start browsing. So this guy is actually okay. So you can see that there is a load customer here also. So must be we can go and also remove this duplicate code here, right? So let's go ahead and import the namespace here, and let's go ahead and delete this complete source code from here. We don't need it anymore. Just we need the the data access, the data set binding with the grid is what we need, and nothing else. So we can just go and remove this one and also this one, right? So let's go ahead here and create the object of CLS SQL Server class. So we're going to go and say CLS SQL Server obj equal to new CLS SQL Server, right? And this CLS SQL Server, again we're going to use the same function here, obj.get customers, right? And and that's it. So you can see that again we have removed some more duplicate code here, and it is nice that whenever we want to load all the customers, we are calling the get customers functions again and again. So you can see that now we have removed duplicate code from two places, right? And that is really improving our code quality also. So let me just go and see that if this thing is working. So also let me check in case if there are other places where I can use that get customers function. I don't see a lot over here, right? Right, this is there, but this is with a where clause. Okay, means our select customer is currently the get customers function what we have, it returns all the records. but we cannot utilize it here. Why? Because this is with a where clause, right? So now let's see. So let's go ahead and create one more function. Must be because we have one get customers which actually loads all the records. What we can do is we can create one more get customers function here which actually returns the records depending on the customer code or the customer name. Okay, so you can see that I've copy pasted the get customers function here, and I'm going to create a overloaded function of get customers. So one get customers function takes nothing, and the other get customer function actually takes a customer code. So if you go and invoke the get customers without any input parameters, it will go and load all the customers. But if you go and invoke the get customers with the customer code, it will just go and load the record of that customer code, right? So there we are. So what we have to do now here is very simple. We have to just go and we'll just go and copy this command over here, right? Because we need to have the command which actually takes the customer code and not the command without the where clause, right? So you can see that I have copy pasted the SQL which has the where clause, that is where customer name equal to whatever name you pass in the get customers function. So you can see that now I have copy pasted the whole thing there, and let me just go and build this. So in other words, now we have created two functions here. One function get customers returns all the records of the customer table, and the other one returns depending on the name. Great. Now let's again go back to the UI and let's try to get rid of all the code from here, because we're going to go and invoke this code from the CLS SQL Server class, right? So let me just go and select all this code till here, delete it, right? And because we are going to get the data set from the get customers function. So probably we can go and delete this complete code till here. Okay, and this data set will get filled from the get customers function which we have just created. Okay, and the other things will all remain same down below, right? So only thing what we have to do now is let's go ahead, the data access namespace is already imported. So let's go ahead here and now create the object of CLS SQL Server. So I'm going to go and create object of CLS SQL Server, and I'm going to go and invoke the get customer function which actually takes the customer name. So you can see that I'm saying get customers, and I'm going to pass him the customer code there, right? So this get, and now you can see that how the method is overloaded. You can see that the get customer function one is without parameters and the other one is with parameters. So let's go ahead and invoke the function with parameters, right? So that's good. And remember that the below code will not change, because from here, right, the below code where we are setting the data set object to the variables, those things will remain as it is, right? So only thing what we have done is we have moved this data access code to that centralized CLS SQL Server class. That's what that's what we are trying to do here. Okay, so that's done. Nice. I think we don't need to do any other changes here. Right, now let me see if there are any more select statements, any more select queries which are there in my UI. I don't see it. You can see that there are two select statements I have found, but those statements are in the CLS SQL Server class, so we don't need to worry on that, right? So almost I think we are able to get rid of at least the select duplicate code, right? Now let's go ahead and target the insert, update and delete code, because even they are duplicates, right? So let's go to the CLS SQL Server class here, and let's create a very simple function here called as insert customer. Now this insert customer will return a boolean flag, and this boolean flag will be true if the insert customer function has successfully insert your customer record. Okay, now let's go to the create customer screen, and let's take this code from here and let's move it to our insert customer function. So let's do a control X from here, and let's move this complete code to that insert customer function over here. Great. Also what I've done is in that insert customer function I'm passing 5 input parameters. One is the customer name, the other one is a country, the third one is a gender and hobbies, and all these values will be passed from the user interface. So I'm going to go and remove the user interface reference which is there currently in the str insert command string here. So I'm going to go and replace all these user objects with the input parameter variables which we have just defined. Okay, and if everything is successful, right, what I'll do is I'll just go and return true over here, saying that everything has been successful. If there is any problem, what I'll do is I'll go and catch the exception and I will return false. So I'll just say try here, and I'll say catch exception. So in case if there is any exception, what I'll do is I'll just return from here false. Sorry for that, return false, right? And I'll just keep the finally as it is. Currently I don't have I can just move the connection dot close into the finally. So I can just take that connection dot close thing. So I can just take the obj connection dot close. So the obj connection dot close and close it into finally, right? Because remember that the obj connection object makes a connection to SQL Server. So even after your application closes, right, that object stays in memory because it is referencing an external component like SQL Server. So you have to ensure that as a good practice to always call the close method or the close function to ensure that the cleanup of the obj connection happens or the SQL connection happens. So you can see that I put that into finally. So what happens is, if there is any exception, it will go to the catch block, and irrespective there is an exception or not exception, the finally block will always be executed. So in that so because of that my connection dot close will always be called. So good. So I'm all set here. Now the next thing what I have to do is I have to go and call this code into my user interface, right? So what I will do is, let's go back to our frm create customer.cs. So now the next thing is, let's go ahead and create the object of the CLS SQL Server class in our FRM customer data entry screen here. So you can see that I'm going and creating the object of CLS SQL Server, saying CLS SQL Server obj insert is equal to new SQL Server, and I'm going to say here obj insert dot insert customer, and we'll start passing all the UI values. So first thing is a customer name. So let's go ahead and pass the txt customer name dot text here, comma. The second thing is the country combo box. So we're going to say cmb countries dot text, right? And also we have gender. So let's go and pass the gender. So let's go ahead and pass each and every value appropriately to the insert customer function here. Hobbies, and same way we have the status, saying that he is married or not, right? Right, so looks everything is fine here. Just a semicolon. There is still something red. Best overloaded. Okay, looks like the status thing, right? The status thing we have set it as a boolean in our insert customer function there, but it looks like it needs it's expecting a string. So let's go ahead to this class here and make this as a string. Okay. Right, good. So let's go ahead and compile this project just to ensure that we are all fine. So let me just go and build this project here. So build solution, everything is fine, nice. And let me just go and find if there are any more inserts in the project. So let me just say, if there are any more scattered inserts. So you can see that all the inserts are currently going through the insert customer, and it is nice. Also, let's now go for the update. So you can see now update is again scattered all over the places. So must be we can start centralizing even this this operation also. So let's again go back to our CLS SQL Server class there, and let's go ahead and create a update customer function must be over there, and let's try to go and centralize the update code as well. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll do a Control X from here, and let's go to the CLS SQL Server class here, and let me go and create a very simple function here called as public pool update customer, and let me go and paste the complete code over here. Great. Now the input parameters for both insert customer and the update customer is same, so I'm going to go and cut paste the complete thing over here. So you can see that I've cut pasted the insert customer input parameter to the update customer, and let me just go ahead and put the variables in the update syntax, right? So you can see that I'm putting one by one the input variables. I'm mapping it to the update customer str update command string. Okay, now let's again go back to our UI, and let's go ahead and invoke this update customer function. Again, you can see there are some red signs there because we have to just say return true. So I'm going to just say return true from here, right? So if everything is successful, he will return true. If something crashes, then the exception will be raised. Right, now let me again go back to my FRM create customer screen there, and let me go to the to the update button, click, and let me go and create the object of CLS SQL Server here. And again, let me just go and pass the parameters from the UI objects to the update customer function. So the first one is txt customer name, the second one is country, the third one is gender, hobbies, and it's the same routine coding which we have done for insert customer. So let this happen. So gender, there goes hobbies, and there goes status. Right, good. So we have successfully centralized the code of insert customer as well as update customer. Now it's time to go and also get rid of the delete customer from the UI. So let me again go. I can see that there is a delete code there. Okay, let me again go and take this complete code. Let me do a control X from here. Let me go again back to my CLS SQL Server class, and probably I will go and create a delete customer function here. So I'll just say public pool delete customer. Now in order to delete a customer, what we need is just the customer name, right? So I'm going to just pass him the customer name, parameter here. And you can see that I've given the the variable names in the delete code there, right? So there's our delete customer, and again, if everything is successful, he will return true. Great. Again, let's go back to our user interface and remove and go and create the object of CLS SQL Server class and invoke the delete functionality here. So obj.delete, whatever is selected in the UI, that is whatever is displayed in the txt customer name.text. Good. So you can see now. Let me just go and select, go and search SQL connection in my project, and you can see that my SQL connection is now moved completely to this data access layer. You can see I'm finding no SQL connection object in my UI code, and that is really nice. So in other words, I have successfully centralized all the code into this new library called as data access. Nice. So let's go ahead and rebuild the solution to just ensure that we don't have any defects, we don't have any errors, and we don't have it. That's good. So in other words, we have come to a very, very interesting situation now, or I'll say we have really come to a very great situation. Now we have moved our scattered data access code to a different class library altogether called as data access. Now this thing is called as the two-tier architecture. In two-tier architecture, what happens is your data access layer is different, and your UI code and your business logic is in a different project. So our business logic as well as our validations are all present in this customer data entry screen, while the data access layer is responsible to go and create the connection object, fire SQL commands, and deal with databases. So really, this is nicely done. Now what we'll do is, let's go ahead and execute this project, and let's test if everything is working fine. So let's first go ahead and search the customer screen. Yes, it is working. Let me go and make some insert update deletes into the enter customer screen here, so I can see I can go and do update. It works fine. I can go and do a delete. That works fine. I can go and probably add some new records here. So let me just go and add Shiv here, and if I go and select US, and if I do, I have to do insert, right? So if I do add here, so you can see Shiv has got inserted there. So looks like everything is working here, and this is really nice. Okay, right. Now probably as a developer, you would conclude looking at this video saying that, okay, that means if I move my data access code to a central layer, I increase reusability. But other than reusability, I would like to stress one more important point here. The point is about changes. Now, I have yet to see a software project, which has not changed, after the project went live. Changes is a part of life, and definitely that applies also to software. Now, for example, now let's say tomorrow somebody goes and says that, okay, I want to go and change this customer table to something called as customer. Okay. Now, if anyone does that, right, what will happen is definitely your program will start crashing, right? So if you go and run the program, if you go and run the project, you will get some kind of errors here stating that, this table does not exist anymore. So you can see that kind of errors you will get. Now, if you were using the previous architecture means, where your your data access code was in the user interface, you have to make changes all over your project. It was a big pain, right? But now, if I want to go and fix this thing, right, what I have to do is I have to only go and make changes in my data access layer. In other words, what I'm doing is, the changes are now getting restricted to only data access layer, rather than getting propagated across projects. And this is a sign of a good architecture. In other words, whenever there is changes, and if the changes is limited to that specific section, it is a sign of a good architecture. So for example, over here now, if I want to fix this error, right, what I can do is I can just go to my my data access layer and start changing the table names only in this class library. And you can see that such a big change it is. Somebody has gone ahead and changed the table name, but for me it will take must be half a minute to fix this, right? And this is the biggest benefit of a tiered architecture. It can be a 2-tier architecture or 3-tier architecture. In other words, the changes of those sections are only affected to those sections and not propagated across project. Now you can see that within a minute I have fixed it, and you can see my project is now up and running. It is not crashing, right? So the biggest benefit of 2-tier architecture, other than reusability, is that basically any kind of database changes is restricted only to the data access layer. Now remember that I had shown a very simple change, that is the table name change. Tomorrow probably what will happen is you will probably go and change that SQL Server to Oracle. So in such kind of scenarios, again this data access layer will be one big guy who will stand in between and ensure that those changes are not propagated across project. So there are two big benefits of this 2-tier architecture. One is that it has increased reusability, and second is any kind of database changes, SQL changes, or any kind of data access changes is only restricted to the data access layer, and it is not propagated to the user interface. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. In this video we saw that how we can use 2-tier architecture to improve our project structure, and we can improve reusability, as well as we can make our project we can manage a project in a better manner. Thank you very much. So again, as we have said that we are going to have two parts. One is practicals and the other one is theory, right? So what my suggestion is, from tomorrow we're going to start day 10, and from day 10 things are going to be a bit heavy. Okay, I'm sure that even day 9 was heavy, but from day 10, we're going to go into in depth of object-oriented programming. We're going to start implementing object-oriented programming. Till now, we have just brushed from the top. We have just created classes and objects and those things, but we have still not got into inheritance, polymorphism, like those kind of stuff, interfaces and abstract classes. So what my suggestion would be, before tomorrow's day 10 starts, please go through this object-oriented programming Q&A video series. You can see that this video series has inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, abstract classes. I know that I have already said in my previous day to see these videos in case you have not seen till now, but for day 10, this is a compulsion. Okay, so my suggestion would be to go and see these videos and understand the concept of object-oriented programming, so that tomorrow when I start my day 10 classes, at least you will understand that what I'm trying to achieve. So I hope that you enjoyed till day 9. Keep learning C#. We have more 51 days to go, but I'm sure that at the end of the 60th day, you will feel that you have really become a C# developer. Thank you very much.